you want access to this podcast earlier than any other viewer, consider becoming a channel member. All tiers get access to this podcast earlier than people who are not channel members, and it does help out this channel a lot. So if you do want to get all of the news updates, discussions, and market information for Flesh and Blood before anybody else, please make sure to become a channel member today. This podcast is also sponsored by Fyendal's Collection. Fyendal's Collection is a collection database website dedicated to showing you the market analytics of all things Flesh and Blood. Looking to track an entire master set? Fyendal's Collection has you covered. It's as easy as creating a collection in their collection tab and choosing which set you'd like to see in all of its glory. There's even an option to only add one of each equipment and cold foil, which really excites my set collecting heart. As a free user, you can upload your collection here to have a great look into what you have accomplished so far in Flesh and Blood. But if you wanted to track your collection in the secondary market, becoming a subscriber really ramps up that analytics portion of Fyendal's Collection. For a measly $3 a month, you get to see the gain and loss each of your collections receive, so you can accurately determine the worth of your cardboard, as far as dollars are concerned. Subscribers also get access to the Market Trends and EV Tracking tabs too. Market Trends is a great way for you to see what's hot in the Flesh and Blood market, and may even give you some insight into what you should pick up for your own collection. The EV Tracker tool is another great example of the data that Fyendal's Collection can provide. Tired of wondering if you're going to get hosed if you buy a booster box or even a case? Well, the EV Tracker is constantly updated to show what your estimated value is on each Flesh and Blood sealed product, which is a great thing for sealed collectors or even people who are just looking to get into the single selling business. Again, all of these tools and more are available to you for just $3 a month. But how about a free month's trial of the site before you settle in? By going to the subscription section and choosing a promo code, you can enter my affiliate code ASHTCG, all capitalized and all one word, and you will get a month of Fyendal's Collection subscription service for free. So if you've been looking for a new card collecting database for your master set collections, or even just some small little collections of your favorite pieces of Flesh and Blood, look no further than Fyendal's Collection. Don't forget to use the promo code ASHTCG when subscribing to receive a free month of service. Thank you so much to Fyendal's Collection for sponsoring this channel, and let's get back to the video. Good morning, my Ashwings. It's such a pleasure to have you all here for another episode of the Common Language Podcast. Today, we are talking a little bit about something that I find to be a core thing to teach new players whenever they're getting into the game, as the Common Language does tend to be a podcast to help people transition into the Flesh and Blood world, as well as also just providing fun insights on new things and stuff like that. So I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about something that I feel like is pretty important in most situations, which is your choice of hero. Now, this choice doesn't matter regardless. At the end of the day, whatever you want to do is entirely up to you. You don't have to worry about, some crazy thing where, you only have to play the meta, or you only have to do this, and, everybody at your locals is playing these cards, so you have to play those. When it comes down to playing a hero, it's really all about how you feel you enjoy your playstyle. The playstyle of the hero is really what somebody should be married to, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of I've heard the saying once before, and I've heard it a couple of times now, and I'm not sure where it originated, but effectively something that had been said is along the lines of date your hero, but marry your class. And that is a very core aspect to a lot of what people choose whenever they're choosing their first hero, right? Maybe they enjoy the concept of dealing physical and arcane, and they like rune blades a lot. Maybe they really just like arcane damage and, blast and spells. They want to go with something kind of like a wizard. Maybe they really enjoy a more bulked up armored character or an armored class that cares a lot about defense. And so they go for something like a guardian, or maybe they even go and they enjoy the randomness and the fun, silly stuff that a brute can provide, still providing a ton of damage, but wildly. So it's never going to be a guarantee that you're going to get every single point of your value in your cards off at any point in the game. So finding out what your class is certainly important that you'd like to play, but I wanted to talk about why sticking to just your class isn't ever a one and done thing. You're not stuck with one class whenever you start playing Flesh and Blood, and you certainly can change that class at any point throughout your time. For example, when I first started playing the game, I actually chose a hero strictly based off aesthetics, and that hero ended up becoming Dromai, the Draconic Illusionist. If you're unsure what Dromai is, well, she's in the Living Legend format now and not in any other format. Well, she's in Blitz, I guess. That's right, she is in Blitz still. And you can play her in Commoner and Clash and things like that, but as far as Classic Constructed goes, she has hit Living Legend, and so she can't be played in that format. But I enjoyed her aesthetic. I enjoyed the concept of, playing out these dragons that all had different abilities and providing kind of like an interesting board state for my opponent to deal with. And then it made your opponent think, right? Do I attack the dragons or do I attack you? Do I attack the dragons? Or do I just try to disrupt you so you can't do anything on your turn? There are plenty of different ways to go about, essentially just doing this, right? There's plenty of ways to manipulate the thought process of my opponent, and that was something I enjoyed. I did also enjoy the board state. I mean, being able to quite literally play a bunch of cards from my hand as permanents, as opposed to just an attack that goes to the grave. These cards stuck around, right? And that gave a lot more, in a way, agency to the deck, because if any of them even stuck around for an additional turn, I get to actually capitalize on that. It's like having a second copy being played at the same time, but you didn't have to use a card or anything like that. And that's why I personally enjoyed Dromai, is because you were able to create that board state and have your opponent kind of really think. But when Dromai hit Living Legend, I had to have a big think for myself. Currently at that time, Prism was really the only hero that was kind of making it happen, right? Part the Mistveil was on the rise afterwards, and we find out a little bit more about Enigma, the Mystic Illusionist. But Prism, Awakener of Soul, was pretty much the only other illusionist available at the time, and she was doing really, really well. So well to the point that her deck was running 2 Fableds in it. You were running a whole bunch of this other stuff, and it was really, really powerful to see. And I wasn't sure if I was able to make that transition over to a light hero that I had nearly no equipment for. I didn't have any of the legendaries. I had none of the Fableds, and none of the Majestics that I needed for the deck, except for like Sculptor of Arclight, because I used it in Prism, the old Prism, in Blitz. And so when it came down to what I wanted to play, I was determined on whether or not I wanted to play another illusionist. And so for months, I mean, quite literally months, I flip-flopped from several different heroes. I went, well, I don't know if I want to play this. I don't know if I want to play this. And I actually started to move into Assassin. Assassin was kind of along that same route, where I was able to play the hero and go, hey, I think that this is still the same kind of hero that adapts that playstyle without permanence. And the playstyle being making my opponent think, and sometimes overthink, to the point where I get to take that agency and disrupt them and provide some kind of, disruption there, so that I can get tempo in my favor. And so before Mistveil came out and everything, I was like, well, I need to get these cards. So I ended up getting my 3 copies of Codex of Frailty. I was able to get the Leave No Witnesses, the Eradicates, the Surgical Extractions. I got it all. And I was like, okay, I think I'm in a good spot to where I'm going to play Uzuri. And the reason I was playing Uzuri was because New was not out yet. And I wanted to play New. But Uzuri was the only thing we had as far as that goes. I know Arachne exists, and I personally love Arachne. But Uzuri, I think, was the more thought-provoking call. So I played Uzuri for a little bit, played Uzuri in a ProQuest, didn't really I didn't do any testing with Uzuri, and I think this is where a lot of what I talk about here is going to be weird, because I didn't do a lot of testing with Uzuri. I went into a ProQuest after not doing anything professional for a while, and kind of bombed it. I think I went 2 and 3, and I just went okay, I'm going home, bye. And so I just left. I had other things I needed to do that day anyway, but I just kind of left without much of a care. I think I lost to a FaB as my last match. I lost to FaB, a hero that canonically was not doing super good. Obviously, this was before the Art of War ban. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just not great, right? Maybe this is just not a good player, significant situation. I'm not feeling myself about how I want to move forward with this deck. And then I was like, I'm just going to wait until New comes out, buy the cards for New, and then be in a better position. So New comes out. I go ahead. I try to get everything I can for it. I don't get any of the levels of enlightenment. And then levels of enlightenment goes up to $30. And I go, well, I need 3 of them, but I don't know. And then I also have, the weakest link comes out, and that card spikes pretty heavy to the point where you're looking at, again, another $30-$40 card. Right now it's it's $60-$65 for a copy of the weakest link. And these disruption abilities and the pure value it gave New, I was like, well, I'm going to play her at a budget level and slowly upgrade. And then I just didn't. I just did not do that. I still have all the stuff for New. I didn't sell any of it. And I still think New is by and far one of the better assassins, if not the best assassin. But I do think that assassin just was not for me at the time. I had a lot going on my plate. I wasn't really able to focus on assassin and focus on learning assassin classic constructed. So I didn't really take the time to do that. I then, after fudging around for a little bit and playing a couple different heroes, I ended up going from New to KO for a little bit because I didn't want to spend any more on the game because I was not in a position to do that. And I already had the KO Armory deck. Effectively, I already have the Command and Conquers, E-Strikes. I had a couple cards from Brute that I previously had opened in other sets, such as Beast Within and no Blood Rush Bellow or anything. So I just kept it as stock as possible with a couple extra upgrades and then ran it into my locals. And I think it did pretty okay. I mean, it played exactly how I wanted it to, and I enjoyed the play style of pushing through that and doing this. And again, I've now switched from Illusionist to Assassin to Brute. So we're in a spectrum here as far as these things are concerned. And after playing Brute for a while, I was like, well, I still don't know what I want to do. Rosetta was coming out, and I said, I really kind of want to play a Runeblade, but I'm not sure who I want to play. Do I want to play Viserai? Do I want to play Florian? Florian was really calling my name at that point because I just love the aesthetic of the hero. I love how they're very mid to late game is their plan, as opposed to trying to get everything out at the beginning of the game and racing. So I went, oh, I don't know. I love aggro, but I just don't feel like it was enough. Sometimes my aggro brain gets too stupid and I just Unga Bunga all my cards out of my hand. So in those situations, I was like, I don't know what I want to play, right? I was getting tired of playing KO, and KO was just not, I would go 1 and 2 at every armory forever. And I was like, this sucks. I don't want to go 1 and 2. I want to go 2 and 1 even, if that, right? Or 3 and 0. That's what I would like. I'd like my wins to be more than my losses. And so all I do is I just ponder over what I'm going to play, how I'm going to do it. And then one armory comes around where Rosetta has finally released and has been legal in CC. Everybody's playing all these new heroes. One individual, I doubt they watch this, but one individual played Vynnset. And Vynnset is a hero that I had thought about with all the new stuff that came out for Runeblades in Rosetta. It sounds like Vynnset has like a super great time with all of these cards because there's so many new cards that make rune chants. And so it wasn't until I went against a Vynnset player who, mind you, has been playing Vynnset religiously since her release. Since her release in Dust Till Dawn, they have been playing Vynnset. And after watching their play and watching their whole game plan evolve as I'm continuing to try to do brute things, I got rocked. And I went, damn, Vynnset's pretty cool. And I knew she was a hero not a lot of people were looking deeper into. I know that a lot of her stuff is fairly low rarity. And the only thing I need to get is her like Majestics. I don't need to worry about getting, the deck doesn't run Command and Conquers. The deck doesn't run E-Strikes. The deck doesn't run any of these crazy, and it doesn't run the Weakest Link. It doesn't run any of these like crazy powerful generics that I need to worry about. And it's more within my budget. And it still plays kind of that mid to late game level, unless of course you have a more aggressive package in your deck. And this is where I made my decision to go with Vynnset. But I'm actually doing something which I should have done with new, which is I'm making sure to slowly upgrade the deck every single week almost. I find a card that I don't have in the deck that I'd like to have that's a more powerful version of something else, and then upgrade it into what I need it to be. For instance, currently I have a Face Purgatory, or I don't have a Face Purgatory, but Face Purgatory is the next card that I would like to get. Face Purgatory is going to be replacing my Crown of Providence in my deck. And that's just because Crown of Providence also blocks 2, but I can filter. And the filter hasn't always been the biggest thing for me, but it is something that does help with my hands. If need be, if I happen to have these Runeblade hands, I can fix them. And something that I'm doing with Vynnset that I was not doing with new is I'm practicing more with her. Something I'm really just trying to get all of the information into my head. Vynnset didn't make a whole lot of sense to me when I first bought her stuff, because I went, well, okay, I just need to get rune chants and then I need to rune gate, and that's it. But the second I found out that rune gating can happen twice in a turn, or sometimes even 3 times in a turn, you really sit there and wonder how often does this happen? How often are we experiencing something like this to where you're able to power through a super crazy turn where you're coming in for 3 rune gate cards in the matter of a game? And after doing a lot of YouTube, diving into players who really love Vynnset and know the ins and outs of Vynnset, I just studied. I studied exactly how I expected to. I watched a bunch of gameplay for things. I looked at different strategies for different matchups, and I can consider myself a pretty solid Vynnset main now. I obviously can still switch back to new at any point if I still wanted to buy those cards, but I think overall I'm just excited to have found a hero and a class that I still care about. I've always had a love for Runeblades without me ever needing to actually be a Runeblade, simply because I've always liked that might and magic concept with them. It's like my favorite D&D characters to play are like Spellblades, right? Because a Spellblade, you know, it's like they get a sword and their sword's really cool and they can like light their sword on fire. And it's like, whoa, that's neat. This obviously isn't the same concept. Effectively, in this situation, Vincent is just summoning like demons from portals to like slam into people and hit them, which is also really cool. But that's also ties into the aesthetic, right? The reason I enjoyed Dromai is because Dromai was a draconic illusionist and she summoned dragons. And I was like, whoa, that's sick, right? That's so cool. You're just summoning dragons from legend that you're using to attack your opponent. And that is an aesthetic I fell in love with and I enjoyed for a long time. And when I first saw Vincent, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. But the more I looked into it, the more I delve into it, and I'm just like, this is actually pretty cool. Like imagining that, you know, this stickly, you know, super thin woman in an Iron Maiden like armor who walks around and just, instead of like swinging a blade or anything of the sort, she's got a flail that she hurts herself with and also her opponent. And then at any point, instead of like using this big crazy, like, you know, warriors have like crazy spin moves or whatever, guardians punch people in the face really hard, Vincent just says, hey, I have enough rune chance, I'm going to summon an elder god from this dimension to attack you with and have them attack you. And the more I keeping that like that image in my brain, the more I'm enjoying Vincent, right? I'm really diving into how she plays and what her aesthetics are and how this all works, and it's really, really cool. Yeah, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. So that is that's just another example of, you don't have to stick with your class, but it is certainly nice because, you know, on the other hand, right, if I stuck with Illusionist and I went from, you know, Draconic Illusionist to Light Illusionist or even to Mystic Illusionist, would I be a better player because I stuck with my class? Or would I still have to learn an entirely new hero? Because Prism does not play like Dromai does. Enigma does not play like Dromai does at all. They're like completely different heroes. And so when it comes down to that, you need to make sure that you're at least going to still have fun and that you're not just like tying yourself into a hole that you don't ever want to get out of. I still love Illusionist. I still think Illusionist is great. And the second they make another Draconic Illusionist, I'm going to hop back on that thing like nobody's business. But I at least know that if I wanted something a little bit more in that mid-range to late game style of play, Vincent is still doing a lot of work. Dromai is going to do a lot of work, hopefully. New does very well in that regard too. You even have other heroes like Florian, who does really well in that mid to late game. And that's just kind of where it stands. So that's something that I like to talk about when it comes to the actual, you know, when it comes down to the play style of what you want to play. If you're a new player, there are several things to go off of, right? But you can always go ahead and have them go off of things like general play style or aesthetic. Those are the two things that I tend to recommend to people if they're going to get into Flesh and Blood, like actually go to their armory every single week and play competitively when an opportunity arises. Going about aesthetics or going about game plan is really the key there. So when I mean game plan, I don't just mean like, you know, I get to put things on a board, right? Because that's cool if that's something you like to do. You know, mechanologists like to boost and go fast. Brutes like that very randomized gameplay style where, you know, they might hit a 6, they might not. It's, you know, all kind of up to random there. But more so, I like to stick with the typical 3, which is aggro, mid-range, and control. And those three, I guess mid-range is also sometimes called combo, but I call it mid-range because effectively you have aggro, which is just all gas, no brakes. You throw a whole bunch of damage at your opponent every single turn until you eventually run out of said gas. And then when you run out of said gas, you kind of just are flailing yourself to the end, and you're hoping that you dealt enough damage to your opponent to where they're at such a low amount of life that all of their blocks are incredibly important, and you're able to sneak in a little bit of like breakpoint damage there. But then you have mid-range. Mid-range is kind of a mix between control and aggro, in which you have a decent defense plan and a decent offense plan. You're not really the best in either, but you're mid in either. You're in a mid-range area where you have enough defensive package, whether it be with your armor or it be with some defense reactions you have in your deck. Then you can come in and you can use a lot of these cards for their resource value to attack for, just a little bit at a time, just to kind of get you going and force your opponent to either take some damage to lower their own life total, or to, have them block out inefficiently to give you the opportunity for you to come in with a more powerful offensive attack. And mid-range, I think, is really, really fun, but it's not for everybody. Some people really enjoy control. Control is, as you expect, you effectively control the board, or control most of the game, in which you are telling your opponent, hey, you either need to pay additional resources in order for you to use your cards, or you're gaining a whole bunch of life, and it's enough life to where your opponent's aggro game plan does not feel as effective, because bursting down 40 life is one thing. Bursting down 70 life is a little different. And that's why, you saw things like Count Your Blessings get banned, or Count Your Blessings Blue specifically get banned. But you also saw a ban in aggro with High Octane getting banned. So I think with control, I like the concept of control also because it tends to be a longer game, right? You want to be at a long game where your opponent's going boom, 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 and you're going, okay, block, 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 block. I'll take, if it was the biggest turn they've ever had and you took 5 damage and it cost you your whole hand, it's significantly better than taking the 20 to 25 damage you would have taken if you didn't block. The aggro into aggro, in most cases, you don't want to block because you're going to be just trading essentially until you're at low life, and then the first person to block loses. Mid-range, if you're aggro going into mid-range, you could beat them because their defensive values might not be as high, but they're still in a very comfortable position to still win if they keep you, if they turn to a more defensive plan and keep them on the offensive, then you can block out efficiently and then wait for your opponent to run out of gas and then start coming in with some more damage. And then aggro into control, same situation, right? Control is able to go, hey, I'm going to just do my own thing. You chill. And then once you're done blasting, I'll go ahead and I'll just swing 1 at you, or I'll swing 2 at you. And at that point, your opponent probably doesn't have any cards in their deck. You've probably got like half your deck there. And so there's all these different plans, but aggro, mid-range, and control are the 3 that I am always like, if you are big into TCGs prior to getting into Flesh and Blood, looking at any of those 3 game plans are essentially what you want to do, right? You want to emulate what you like to play in that other TCG. But if you're brand new to TCGs, you're brand new to TCGs and then you're brand new to Flesh and Blood, in most cases I tend to just go, hey, you can go off aesthetic. I can tell you kind of what a hero does as far as their game plan. And then if you like their aesthetic, you can keep playing them. If you like the class, because it's like one of your favorite classes in D&D, for instance, or something like that. Like, Guardians can be fairly close to Paladins, or, Warriors are very close to Fighters. You have Ninjas who are very close to like almost a rogue-like game plan, except without the sneak attacks. So that's where like assassins come in. Assassins play a little bit more like rogues. There's a tier list for that somewhere, I'm sure. But overall, that's kind of what I like to give as advice to new players is you can find something that you're going to enjoy. And if you need to switch, that's fine. That's why I make series like the $100 hero, where people can buy into a hero for about $100, kind of get familiar with their game plan. And then if they just genuinely don't like them, they can go buy a different deck. And it's not a wasted $100. Those $100 can go to, you know, if you like that hero in that class later in the game or later in your Life in Flesh and Blood, you can just switch back over and you have a bunch of the stuff for it already, which is great. Of course, you can also play on Talishar. Talishar is an online simulator where you can play against other people and play your deck, and you can do all that for free. So before you buy the cards, you can test them on Talishar and see if that is something, a gameplay style that you enjoy, and kind of make it happen from there. So that's pretty much it. There's a lot in regards to finding that hero that you love. I feel like overall, you want to make sure that you're not trying to chase the meta in some cases, right? Sure, if you're a highly competitive player and you've been in TCGs for a long time, you could certainly chase the meta, right? There's always a meta. There's always at least 3 heroes that are like top of the leaderboard at any given point. And those heroes are often going to be where most of the YouTube videos are made off of, most of the content from top 8s of several of these callings and battle hardens and pro tours are going to be. But outside of that, if you're just enjoying the hero and you know how to play that hero really well, that already gives you a bigger advantage into every other player than if you were to be like, oh yeah, I don't really like this hero, I'm going to switch. Oh, I don't like this hero, I'm going to switch. You want to commit to a hero or at least a class and really just hone in on the fact that these heroes are going to be around for a while. Not all of them, obviously, starting right now, right? If you started with Dash Inventor Extraordinaire, obviously she's pretty close to Living Legend. So I don't expect that to be a very a long time for her to be here, but Dash.io is still a hero to be played. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You have the opportunity to play whatever hero you want, and as long as you are constantly practicing, going to your armories, don't if you're going to get into a hero, don't switch out on that hero in the first week that you go to an armory. If you go 1 and 3 at your armory on a brand new hero that you just picked up, don't think that you need to switch heroes. If you find something that's playstyle is a little bit more interesting to you because you have not seen the playstyle of every hero, then you could certainly switch. But in doing so, just know that you're starting back from square one. And you need to take the time, you need to go do some studying, you need to practice with the hero in order for you to really learn those lines and go, oh man, this is going to be really, really good. And then you'll know. You'll get more assistance in regards to that. You'll be able to see, hey, I'm able to effectively see what these cards do, what I'm looking for, what to pitch stack, and how to best sculpt my hand to be the best it can be. And I think that's really the core tenet of Flesh and Blood, is just to make sure that you learn your hero, learn your class, and don't be afraid to switch if one of your heroes hits Living Legend. But just know that you are going to have to put in the practice for this new hero in order for you to be as good as you were with your previous hero. So I hope today was not a lot of rambling for everybody. I know these common language podcasts sometimes happen, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I don't get around to them, but I'm doing my best to make sure I can get to them every single day. Not every day, but like every day I look and I see how much time I have in order to record one. And so you'll see it's daytime. Most of my recording is done at nighttime, but I woke up a little earlier today for me to be able to take care of this so I can record it, get it edited, and then even maybe sent out today, the same day, for you guys before I head into work. So Again, I hope this was educational for some people, whether it be for a new player or it be for a veteran who might be lost after their hero hits Living Legend. It's just about putting in the practice, and that's really it. I mean, that's it with any TCG, but like a lot of this doesn't come truly naturally. You know, you have to make sure to know what cards are going in your deck, what your armories look like. Are you trying to go competitive? Are you trying to not? Like, how much money do you want to put into the hero before you decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to move into a different hero. So hopefully this was, you know, educational in that matter to allow you to find your place after your heroes hit Living Legend. And if you did enjoy this video, you can always go ahead and smooch that like button down below. I really do appreciate it. You can also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And if you wanted to support the channel even further, you can do so by becoming a channel member. Channel members do get access to our podcast, this podcast, The Common Language, a week earlier than everybody else does. So that's why if you're just now seeing this, it's probably because it was delayed for you by a week. And then for the channel members, it was delayed by a week because brain just doesn't give me enough time to do that. So yeah. So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate everything you do. Let me know in the comments down below, who was your first hero, your first love in TCGs, in Flesh and Blood more specifically, and how have you dealt with making the switch to a different hero or even a different class entirely? I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, it's just great to talk with all of you again and kind of do this. I hope to maybe do some guests on here sometime soon. Does anybody think we should do some guests, have some people on and talk and chit chat about the things we love? Because I think that'd be pretty fun. But God, I hate scheduling. So hopefully it's nowhere near as difficult. But let me know down below. Love to hear from you. And as always, remember to have fun in the Flesh and Blood. And I will see all of you beautiful Ashwings in the next episode of the Common Language podcast.